reading passes 2, you should spend about 20 minutes on questions 14 to 26, which are based on reading passes 2 below. Our second attempt at domesticating the tomato. It took at least 3,000 years for humans to learn how to domesticate the wild tomato and cultivate it for food. Now, two separate teams in Brazil and China have done it all over again in less than 3 years. And they have done it better in some ways, as the redomesticated tomatoes are more nutritious than the ones we eat at present. This approach relies on the revolutionary CRISPR genome editing technique, in which changes are deliberately made to the DNA of a living cell, allowing genetic material to be added, removed, or altered. The technique could not only improve existing crops, but could also be used to turn thousands of wild plants into useful and appealing foods. In fact, a third team in the US has already begun to do this with a relative of the tomato called the ground cherry. This fast track domestication could help make the world's food supply healthier and far more resistant to diseases such as the rust fungus devastating wheat crop. This could transform that we eat, says Georg Kudlam at the University of Munster in Germany, a member of the Brazilian team. There are 50,000 edible plants in the Germany, 50,000 edible plants in the world, but 90% of our energy comes from just 15 crops. We can now mimic the known domestication course of major crops like rice, maize, sorghum, or others. It says Kixia Gao of the Chinese Academy of Sciences in Beijing. Wild tomatoes, which are native to the Andes region in South America, produce pea-sized fruits. Over many generations, peoples such as the Aztecs and Incas transformed the plant by selecting and breeding plants with nutrients in their genetic structure, which resulted in desirable traits such as large fruit. But every time a single plant with the mutation is taken from a larger population for breeding, much genetic diversity is lost. And sometimes the desirable mutations come with less desirable traits. For instance, the tomato strains grown for supermarkets have lost much of their flavor. By comparing the genomes of modern plants to those of their wild relatives, biologists have, have been working out what genetic changes occurred as plants were domesticated. The teams in Brazil and China have now used this knowledge to reintroduce these changes from scratch while maintaining or even enhancing the desirable traits of wild strains. Goodlaw's team made 6 changes altogether. For instance, they tripled the size of fruit by editing a gene called fruit weight and increased the number of tomatoes per truss by editing another called multiflora. While the historical domestication of tomatoes reduced levels of the red pigment lycopene thought to have potential health benefits, the team in Brazil managed to boost it instead. The wild tomato has twice as much lycopene as cultivated ones. The newly domesticated one has 5 times as much. They are quite they are quite tasty, says Kutla. A little bit strong and very aromatic. The team in China redomesticated the several strains of wild tomatoes with desirable traits lost in domesticated tomatoes. In this way, they managed to create a strain resistant to a common disease called bacterial spot race, which can devastate yields. They also created another strain that is most salt tolerant and has higher levels of vitamin C. Meanwhile, Joyce Swan Egg at the Boyce Thompson Institute in New York State decided to use the same approach to domesticate the ground cherry or golden berry Physalis ruinosa for the first time. This fruit looks similar to those related Cape gooseberry, Physalis peruvianum. Ground cherries are already sold to a limited extent in the US, but they are hard to produce because the plant has a sprawling growth habit and the small fruits fall off the branches when dry. Barnex king has edited the plants to increase fruit size, make their growth more compact, and to stop fruits dropping. There is potential for this to be commercial crop, says Swan Egg. But she adds that taking the work further would be expensive because of the need to pay for a license for the CRISPR technology and get a regulatory approval. This approach could boost the use of many obscure plants, says Jonathan Jones of the Sainsbury lab in the UK. But it will be hard for new foods to grow so popular with farmers and consumers that they become new staple crops, he thinks. The 3 teams already have their eye on other plants that could be catapulted into the mainstream, including foxtail, oatgrass, and cowpea. By choosing wild plants that are drought or heat tolerant, says Gao, we could create crops that will thrive even as the planet warms. But Kudla didn't want to reveal which species were in his team's side because CRISPR has made the process so easy. Anyone with the right skills could go to the lab and do this. Questions 14 to 18. Read the passage 2. Reading passage 2 has 5 sections A to E. Which section contains the following information? Write the correct letter A to E in boxes 14 to 18 on your answer sheet. Note, you may use any letter more than once. A reference to a type of tomato that can resist a dangerous infection. Section C. An explanation of how problems can arise from focusing on a certain type of tomato plant. Section B. A number of examples of plants that are not cultivated at present but could be useful as food sources. Section E. A comparison between the early domestication of the tomato and more recent research. Section A. A personal reaction to the flavor of tomato that has been genetically edited. Section C. Questions 19 to 23 look at the following statements. Questions 19 to 23 and the list of the searchers below. Match each statement with the correct researcher A to D. Write the correct letter A to D in boxes 19 to 23 on your answer sheet. Note, you may use any letter more than once. Domestication of certain plants could allow them to adapt to future environment challenges. Go. The idea of growing, option B, and the idea of growing and eating unusual plants may not be accepted on a large scale. Jonathan Jones, option D. It is not advisable for the future direction of certain research to be made public. Joe Goodluck, option A. Present efforts to domesticate one wild fruit are limited by the costs involved. Joyce Swan Eck, option C. Humans only make use of a small proportion of the plant food available on Earth. George Kudla, option A. Questions 24 to 26, complete the sentences below. Choose one word only from the passage for each answer. Write your answers in boxes 24 to 26 on your answer sheet. An undesirable trait such as loss of flavor may be caused by a mutation in a tomato gene. By modifying one gene in a tomato plant, researchers made the tomato 3 times its original size. A type of tomato which was not badly affected by salt and was rich in vitamin C was produced by a team of researchers in China.